So this is the curve. Like, this is the first day you retain a lot of information, but eventually day 2, day 3, day 4, day 4, everything's zero, gone. So what we're essentially doing, if you are an absolute beginner, then I would say you can give about 3 months or so. If you're an absolute beginner, or if you're somebody who's struggling to clear mains, so in the third round you go ahead and uh, attempt the questions that you're going by your gut feeling, or you're going by your weirdest logic, or some kind of weird elimination or trick that you may have heard in YouTube, whatever it is, whatever your confidence lets you go over. So you can do all that jugaad work in the third round.
Now, just to give a context of Uma to everyone present here before she takes a center stage, Uma did a raw and real with me about last year. And the best part of her opening up very candidly about her preparation was that she in successive attempts she kind of relooked at her strategy, recursively changed what wasn't working for her, and drastically towards the end kind of threw away the huge pile of current affairs and just focused on a few topics. And trust me, that has been one of the main focus point of all that video. People have been like dying to ask, how did you finally zone in on few topics and just went all guns in. But I have told this class about the agenda. So we're going to discuss an overall approach towards prelims, the mindset which works. When to start preparing for pre, I think is a simple thing. These guys are going to attempt majoritarily for the first time next year. Reading in practice, I think, is a crucial area which you're going to touch, because then you will come towards mocks, number of mocks to attempt, and how to analyze the mocks. It would be interesting if you could then take us to the PYQ aspect of preparation, because that's very important and easily available to all of us. And then 1 week leading up to the exam, what should be the agenda? And I've told them that at the end of this, we will be giving them a combo set of flash notes, the one I shared with you, on WhatsApp, right? So a few words about how to make notes and summarizing. Awesome, guys. Off to you, Uma. Go ahead.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Like Sir said, I'll be going along those lines. So since we have very less time, I'll be to the point. So the first thing is the overall approach you should have for prelims, or in other words, what not to do for prelims. See, one thing is, do not read too much. So reading too much is what made me take so many attempts. So please read very little and practice more. So this should be the overall approach. And you may be thinking that the paper is becoming more difficult year after year, with a lot of weird questions, which will make you want to read more, look for more sources, and like take whatever source that is coming in the market. But trust me, just read your basics, stick to basics, and then the focus should be more on practicing. So this should be the approach. Please keep this in mind. If you keep this strictly in your mind, that you should read less but practice more, half of prelims game is done. Okay. And second thing, when to start prelims. So my approach has always been to start prelims just before the exam. So if you are an absolute beginner, then I would say you can give about 3 months or so. If you're an absolute beginner, or if you're somebody who's struggling to clear mains, clear prelims, then also I would say 3 months is a good enough time, 3 months before prelims. I'll talk about how to schedule this 3 months so as to make sure that you will clear the exam. And if you're somebody who has already taken prelims or confident with prelims or cleared prelims once, then I would say you should not spend more than 1.5 to 2 months. Anything more than this would be difficult. Even if you're a working professional, I wouldn't recommend covering prelims in bits and pieces throughout the year, because prelims is like a sprint. So it's best if you try to give that time right before the exam. Even the kind of facts or anything that you try to remember for prelims, it's very ephemeral. So there's no point trying to revise it multiple times, like 1 year before the exam. So this is something I would say about when to start the preparation. If you're an absolute beginner, then I would say just have faith in yourself and give yourself 3 months before the exam. And these 3 months, you'll be studying like 12 to 13 hours a day. There's no compromise there. We won't compromise on the quality of the thing. But that is the right time, I feel, to do. And next part is about, one second, how to go about prelims. So again, like I said before, please do not keep on reading all the time. Focus more on the practice of the tests. So what happens is, when, like, try to think about our mindset. When we are reading something from a book or your notes, you feel like you're learning something. So that's why you tend to read. But when you're taking a test, you assume that you are actually testing yourself rather than learning something. But the thing with the mock test for prelims is, every mock test, every question is actually like a learning material. You should approach it in the form of a learning material rather than a purely testing something. Yes, you do test yourself, you do learn how to attempt a paper, but most importantly, with the prelims mock test, you're learning from them. So you should treat your mock test as also as your short notes, or like, textbook or something. So if you give them the same status as your short notes or your whatever learning material that you have, then you will automatically focus more on tests and practicing. So this is something. See, for instance, when I was studying, I used to divide my day into two parts: morning session and afternoon session. Morning session, I used to take a test every day in those 3 months. It doesn't matter whether I finish the syllabus for that part or anything, but the first part is strictly for testing. So I would write a test, I would analyze the test, I would learn from the test. In the afternoon, I would go ahead and do my revision. Let's say, uh, whatever short notes that I might have, newspaper notes that I made, or any other whatever I wanted to read. But I would never see. I would never separate them. Every day I need to revise, and I also need to write a test. So this is the third point. So please keep in mind, mock tests are a way to learn for prelims. This is not like any other mock test or mock test for mains. Mock test for prelims is completely different. And if you understand this, you'll realize clearing prelims is simply a function of the number of mock tests you do, and how good your analysis and revision is. Okay, so my fourth point is about how to, now I this is the most important point, how to schedule your mock test. I said you need only 3 months. I said you need to do a lot of mock tests. Then how do you go about it? So every year I used to do 70 mock tests. 70 mock tests may seem like a lot, but it's actually two test series. That's it. Two test series. Each test series generally has 35 tests. So I would pick up two test series, and I would, like, the entire block I used to pick up once, and I used to segregate them. I'll come to how to analyze the mock test in a bit. So I used to segregate these tests subject wise. So generally there are like 6 or 7 subjects, and I used to take like subject wise or sectional tests as they are called. I used to segregate them. For example, if you take modern history, test series 1 will give you 2 tests. Test series 2 may give you 3 tests. So I have a total of 5 tests in my hand. So for each subject, I would have at least 5 or 6 subject-wise tests, or in other words, sectional tests. So these tests do have like 100 questions. They have to be attempted in 2 hours. It's just that these tests have just one subject they're focusing on. So they are like sectional tests. Okay, this is how I would first segregate the test. And in the first round, and the full length test, whatever you have in those 35, you keep them aside for a little bit. So in the first 1.5 months of those 3 months, you will focus entirely on this subject wise or sectional tests. So in the first round, that is in your 1.5 months, you will give 1 week per subject. So let's say I always used to start with modern India because I was very comfortable with it. So my first week, or maybe even 6 days or 7 days, depending on how I felt about the subject, but the maximum you should give for a subject in your first round is 1 week. I don't think you need or you should give anything more than that. So in the every week, I used to pick up one subject. Okay, let's say I start with modern India, and I've decided I'm a beginner. I've decided to give 1 week for modern India. Now, how do I cover modern India in this 1 week. So generally, if you take any test series, the tests are graded, in the sense the first test is the easiest, and then so on. So on the first day, I would just sit and take the test. It doesn't matter. I may have read something before. With absolute whatever little knowledge I have, I will sit and attempt the test, and I will attempt it like a real test. I will try to use my tricks, or try to use my logic, my head, whatever I can, but I'll do it sincerely for 2 hours. Once the test is done for 2 hours, next 2 to 2.5 hours, sometimes even 3 hours, I would sit and analyze the test. In the next part of our discussion, I'll come to how to actually attempt a test. But here, I'm trying to tell you how do you schedule your mock tests and revision in those 3 months. So in the first 1.5 months, each week, I would allot one subject. So I would start with modern India. In the morning, the first thing I would get up and do is start taking a test. I would take a test and then sit and analyze the solution, whatever is happening. By then, your lunch break will come. So that is when, like, 1:12 or 1 o'clock. And in the afternoon, I would take my short notes on history, whatever modern India short notes are, I would parallelly read. So it's never like I'll sit and finish my entire modern India and then I'll pick up a test. So these two things always happened parallelly. And I was learning parallelly. On one hand, these test series, whoever is making those test series, they put a lot of effort. They go here and there and they collect nice questions for you, which you may not have the time to go and check out yourself. So utilize them, like take advantage of that. So in the morning session, I would learn a lot from the test series that somebody else has made. Their effort, I'm learning from them. And in the afternoon session, I would read whatever short notes I have on history, basic short notes. See, the my entire preparation, I did not read any short notes other than Bipin Chandra, a small NCRT textbook. And spectrum, towards the end of the spectrum, there are some summary sheets towards the entire, like, end of the spectrum. I tore those from the spectrum and kept the book away. So it's my Bipin Chandra NCRT notes, which I have in like 10 or 15 papers. And then I have the spectrum ka pages. So in the afternoon, I would read those. And in the morning, I would do the test, analyze it, and read from their solutions. So this is how you will finish your all your subjects in 1.5 months. 1 week per subject maximum, and you will be able to finish. Like if you look at science and technology, you wouldn't need more than 4 or 5 days if you go by this method. Okay, and this is how you'll do 1.5 months, and you still have another 1.5 months. Now what you'll do now is you will focus on full length tests and CSAT test, because CSAT is becoming tricky and you should be focusing on CSAT as well. So in these 1.5 months also, you need a structure to study. You can't just pick up any subject and study. Again, I would divide my time of whatever 7 subjects I have. I would give them this time 3 days each. And but I would still, in the morning, I would attempt full length tests. I would go ahead and attempt the test. In the afternoon, again, if the first 3 days is for modern India this time as well, I would revise my modern India notes, whatever that I have. So this would go on in the afternoon. And I would also schedule some CSAT tests in between, depending on where your level is for CSAT. Some people are like very comfortable, then you can reduce the number of CSAT tests. But I would say attempt at least 10 or 15 CSAT tests, because you have 1.5 months. That's a lot of time. And full length test, you can attempt like 20-25 full length tests and do good number. CSAT, at least try to do 10 CSAT tests. So this is how you should schedule your tests. And the next part is, fine, all this is fine. You will attempt a mock test. You will analyze it on the same day. But how to extract the maximum out of it? Or in other words, how to revise this mock test and make sure you're remembering all those things, whatever you're reading. Because every mock test has 100 questions. And when you're analyzing them, you are bombarded with a lot of new information. How do you filter that information? How do you remember it so that you can actually make use of that information in the actual exam. So now we'll talk about that. Okay. So first is how to attempt the test. I think this is like very, very important. So whenever you're attempting a prelims test, even if you're an absolute beginner, you should have some strategy in mind. You cannot just go about, attempting and then not knowing what to do. You should have a clear strategy on how you'll tackle those 100 questions. And after finishing the test, you should have a strategy on how will I make sure that I extract the maximum out of this paper, how will I remember them, and how will I utilize it in the actual exam. Without these two strategies, attempting a mock test is more or less useless. Okay, so the first is how to attempt the paper. So any test, attempt it first sincerely in 2 hours. I've seen many people, they try to attempt 25 questions at a time, or they keep looking at the answers behind. So don't do all that. Just think of it like the final exam. Even if you're unprepared, you think of it as your final exam and give it full 2 hours and simulate the exam, is what I mean. And secondly, attempt the paper in 3 rounds. So in the first round, you have to skim through the paper and try to identify, try to mark questions you're very confident about. These are like very, very simple, basic NCRT type questions. So these questions may not be more than like 30, maximum 30, 35. If it's an easy paper, then maybe 40, but never more than that. Nobody, even in the final exam, I sincerely believe that nobody knows more than 30 questions for sure. And the game starts after that 30. So the confidence that you have to move beyond 30 and actually attempt 90 is what will get you through, like, clear the exam. So anyway, so first round, in 30 minutes or so, you can take 30 minutes time, skim through the paper and identify the easiest questions and mark them. Okay, and now first round is over. So technically, what are these first round questions? These are the questions that you know for sure, like you're confident about. This is the first lot. And this now comes the second round of questions. Now you start thinking about some of the questions that you skimmed through but could not clear in the first round. You may need some thinking, you may need some recollection, you may need some logic, elimination, whatever. All of this will happen in the second round of the paper. Okay, the second round is actually where you get most of your questions. And now finish the second round in maybe like 45, 50 minutes, do the second round. And now you're done with the second round. Also, whenever you're doing a round, try to circle the number of the question. Like if it's a first round question in your mock test, just put one circle on the question number. If it's a second round question that you attempted, then put two circles. If you're attempting a particular question in the third round, you have to circle that 3 times or maybe put a box or something. This is very important for analyzing your paper later on, but this is how you can go. So in the third round, you go ahead and attempt the questions that you're going by your gut feeling, or you're going by your weirdest logic, or some kind of weird elimination or trick that you may have heard in YouTube, whatever it is, whatever your confidence lets you go over. So you can do all that jugaad work in the third round. So this way, like, you have to cover your paper in 3 rounds, and you should be very clear about which question you attempted in which round, because that's important to analyze your performance in the exam. So this is a elimination may have been eliminated in the exam now, but there's always something that you can come up with, because see, even the test series, whatever test series you get in the market, they're also updating as per the updation of UPSC. So if elimination is not working, by actually attempting and practicing 70 tests, believe me, you will come up with your own techniques. You will be capable of making a YouTube video about prelims techniques if you can actually be sincere with those 70 tests and have an eye for what is happening in the paper. Okay, so this is how I think you should attempt a paper 3 rounds, and also clearly identify which question you attempted in which round. Okay, next. Now, what happens after you're done with the mock test? And this is the most important part, because everybody takes tests, but the difficult part is to face our own performance. So you will now start analyzing. So when analyzing will come the other way around. First, you'll also have some questions which you have not attempted only, maybe 10-15 questions that you thought there was no point in attempting, and then fine. But please do not leave more than 10 or 15 questions. It's very risky. At least get yourself to attempt 85 to 90 questions, and this confidence you'll get only when you're well versed with solving 100 questions in 2 hours, which you can get through a lot of practice. Anyway, so when you're revising, yeah, how to reduce the time of analyzing it is, yes, this is also very important, because I've seen many of my friends, they used to take entire day to analyze a paper. This is very ineffective. If you write test for 2 hours and take the entire day for analyzing it, then when will you revise the test that you wrote previously? When will you revise your short notes? When will you go over the newspaper? So you cannot take more than 3 hours to analyze a paper, and we'll see how. So when you're analyzing a paper, you should have a technique to analyze. So the first things that you'll analyze is those questions that you left. That means these are the questions you have absolutely no clue about, and these are important because there are some things that you do not know and you should know. That should be your priority. So you'll quickly go over those questions. Let's say there are 10-15 questions. Try to go over them, underline them, or whatever. Do not note down anything at this point. We'll come to revision and noting down later. But at this stage, you just go over it. Okay, this question I do not know. Next, move on to the third round questions. These questions are where you applied your weird logics or eliminations and etc. Try to quickly go over the solutions to these and try to understand where your logic went wrong. Where are there some consistent drawbacks in your logic making process, or are you getting something wrong? Or maybe, you know what happened, over writing a lot of tests, I realized I always get questions. My guesses in art and culture are always wrong. No matter what. If I apply some weird logic, I go wrong. But same thing when I applied some nonsensical logic, which or gut feeling in economics, they always get right. So I identified this pattern for myself. It's a very unique, distinct pattern for myself, and I made sure in the final exam my guesses were all in economics, my weird guesses. And if it's an art and culture question, I would be very careful and keep that away. So this is just an example of a pattern I'm trying to say. When you solve a lot of papers repeatedly, you'll see that there are some things that are very unique to your answering strategy. You should be smart and identify. I have also seen a lot of people who analyze the paper very passively, like just because they have to read the solution, they have to know. No, you have to be very careful. Like, why did I get this wrong? At the same time, you also have to be quick. And initially it may feel like a task, but if you take interest in this process, it's very interesting. I always liked prelims preparation. If you take interest in this process, then you'll eventually catch up and then try to finish it in less time. So this is second is you analyze third round questions, and next you will come to second round questions. These are the questions where again you applied some method. These are better than the third round questions. Just try to gain information if you can, here and there, and see if there's any, again, flaws in your logic, or if you forgot something. Because in the second round you get things wrong because you're not able to recollect something, or your logic was wrong somewhere, or your concepts are not strong. Just try to brush over them through that. And in the first round, let's say you got 30 questions right, and these are the questions that you got right in the first go. So you need not spend a lot of time. Spend a little time here and just skim through the solutions. It's okay. You can be confident about these questions because after all, you got them right the moment you saw them. So you don't have to like sit and go deeply over them, because one bad thing about test series in the market is whenever they're giving the solutions, sometimes they tend to give a lot of information in the solution. So it's that much information is not needed. If you got a question right in the first go confidently, that means you're fairly good at that concept or that domain, and you can leave it at that. You just look at the solution and you're like, fine, leave that. So when you analyze your paper in this way, like categorize it into 4 sections, give the least time to the questions that you got correct immediately, then you'll get more time for other questions. So even in the other questions, try to analyze any patterns that you're seeing in your say, are you making any silly mistakes? Are you making any logical errors? Are you making mistakes in elimination techniques or anything? Just try it. Which is your strong subject? Which is your weak subject? What are the kinds of questions that you need to focus more on? Like even in art and culture, medieval part, I was very weak. So I understood that from answering the questions. Although I prepared medieval and ancient equally, but I always got medieval questions wrong because they were very factual. So I realized, okay, this is my weak area. When I'm revising something in the afternoon, then I should pay more attention there. So this is how you should be very active, deliberate when analyzing the paper. Because if you analyze the paper well, then you will know a lot about yourself and your attempting style. Okay. So this is how you take a mock test and analyze it on the same day. Now, next is, how do you revise this paper? It's good that you gave this paper, and you analyzed it today. My exam is 3 months away. What is a guarantee that I'll retain everything and analyzed? 0%. There's no way you'll remember anything from that paper. So my simple thumb rule was, every test that I take should be revised at least 3 times before going to the exam. And I had an elaborate schedule to make sure this happens. So what is this 3 times? You take test on day 1 and you analyze it on the same day. That analysis counts as revision 1. And then you have to revise for the second time, and then again for the third time. And when you revise it on the third time, is when you will actually note down something from that paper. Until then, you're not jotting down anything from that paper. You're only going through it. And what you can underline or do something, but don't waste too much time. Just make sure, okay, this is the question, this is the solution, this is something that I do not know. It's all like mental analysis, not actual noting down. We'll do the noting down for the third revision. So first revision is the analysis done on the same day when the test was taken. Second revision a few days later, and third revision another few days later. So how I used to space is, if I take test on day 1, then my first revision would be 6 or 7 days later. And my second, so first revision is on the day that I've taken the test. Second revision is 6 or 7 days later from that day. And the third revision is once again 5 or 7 days later from that day. So how would I remember? I would put this all on the Excel sheet. So when I decide to sit for those 3 months or 2 months for the actual exam, the most fun part for me was to make my Excel sheet. So I would make Excel sheet, this test number, first revision or the day on which I'm taking test. Again, when is the second revision? Date there. Third revision, date there. And whenever I would do those revisions and tests, I would make it green, so that every paper, as the days progress, you'll see a lot of green blocks on your Excel sheet. You don't even need Excel sheets. Like you can just like do it on a small sheet of paper. 1 to 10, keep a track of what is happening. So this is how revision should be done. There is some law, I forgot the name of the law, which says that your information, like whatever you study, will exponentially reduce with time. So this is the curve. Like this is the first day, you retain a lot of information. But eventually day 2, day 3, day 4, day 4, everything 0, gone. So what we are essentially doing is we are introducing another curve here by starting on, let's say 7th day. This is test 1, day 1. Again. So you're introducing new curves by refreshing your memory. So this is what you're trying to do. It's called, the method is called spaced repetitions. So this is how I used mock tests to do the spaced repetition. So it's very simple. Put in your Excel sheet. And also one good thing about all this process is you go on an autopilot mode. You're not stressed. You know what to do on every day. You know which test you're taking on which day. You know which test you're revising. So morning you'll be taking tests every day. In the afternoon, I said, right, like you will be revising. So revision is of two types. First revision is about the short notes, the static part that you have. The second part of that revision is actually the test revision. Like whatever test that you attempted previously, you can revise that test. So I'll also talk about how to revise that test. Okay, so when you're analyzing a mock test for the first time, you will take 2.5 to 3 hours. That's very normal. And you will not be noting down anything. It's all mental reading of the paper, going through the solutions, etc. Now, 1 week later, you picked up the paper again. Okay? This time also, try to go in the same order. By looking at the questions itself, you will realize which are the questions that you left, because you had initially identified with 1 circle, 2 circle, 3 circles. So start with the questions that you left, and then just go through the question and solution. And then next, now you're not actually taking the test. You're simply going through the answer. You're answering, going through the questions, and then go to the third round questions, and then go to the second round questions, and then finally skim through those first round questions which you were always confident about. Now you're just skimming through to strengthen your memory. So this time you won't take more time because you already have some remnants from your first revision. So this time you'll take 2 hours, maximum 2 hours. You won't take more than it. Now you should not take more than this. So this is your second time revision. Now, once again, revision done, you still have not noted down anything, but you have reinforced your memory on a lot of things. You keep the test paper away. Now, 1 week later, the time comes for third revision or the final revision. Now pick up the paper, and trust me, now you'll take even lesser time because you have revised this paper twice. There are a lot of things you will remember, or that has already like sat in your memory. Now last time, once again, go through the same process. This time there are some questions or some points that you fail to remember even after 2 revisions. Now these are the points that you should be writing down. So, and these are which you feel are important, but somehow they are not like sitting. So for example, governor generals, or I always used to forget the order no matter how many times I read. So if there's a question on governor general, in the final thing, I used to just note it down. Or literature, books of anybody. All this you have to write down. And even when you're writing down, one side of the A4 sheet, it should be your target. Because you should not make another solution paper out of that mock test. You should only pick up very little which you feel are very likely to be asked in the exam, and somehow you're unable to remember them. Do not dump everything. Just be confident, because you have already like reinforced your memory so many times. You pick up whatever you can from the paper and file that paper, like keep that away. And you repeat the process until like 10 days before the exam. I think it's good to take tests 10 days before the exam also. You can go ahead and take the test, and this filing continues to happen. Maybe towards the ending papers, like the full length papers, you may not get time to revise it 3 times. There you can revise it 2 times also. Second time you try to note down whatever you want. So what happens is, towards the by the end of this cycle, you will get 35 papers, right? Because one page per mock test. So you have 35 papers with you. And these are the papers that you will revise in the last 1 week or 10 days. You will just go over and over, like revise them 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, revise it every day. And when you're revising to make things interesting, let's say in your that note of some XYZ mock test, you wrote some point about uh, some avatar of Buddha, right? So you, the whole day you're sitting and revising it, so and so. You just try to Google this stuff, like very little, okay, something avatar of Buddha, and you see if any Google search throws up. Just skim through it only to make things interesting for you. So when I was doing this once, there was a question on Maitreya Buddha in one of the exams, that one of the years that I appeared. And that question, like I came to know about Maitreya when I was actually doing this. The mock test had given some other avatar. I was like, okay, what is this avatar? How does it look? I just typed it on Google, and then somehow just close by, I there was another word written, Maitreya, and it sat in my head. So I'm just saying, like, since you have very little to do, which is 35 papers for 10 days, revising them again and again and again, things can get boring. When you feel that you're bored, just type that, whatever written in that your sheet, type it on Google and try to see, if there are any connections or whatever. And if it's like, do not stress too much, just cursory glance, that's it. So this is how you can uh, like revise whatever sheets that you have made in the last 10 days of the exam. Like this, I never focused too much on actually solving PYQs, because all the PYQs are in some way or other covered in the mock test. So when I sit and try to and attempt a full length previous year's paper, I would get like 95 questions right, because all of them were already covered in the test series. It's like, and again, because I had multiple attempts. So that instead, what I used to do is, when I'm revising any subject, let's say this is my first week for history. The first thing I would do is sit through last 5 years prelims papers of history and try to understand what are the kinds of questions they're asking, which areas, and how is the questioning framework. And by doing this for like 1 or 2 hours, like properly go through each and every question. You don't have to solve, just understand the questioning pattern, like how are they questioning, what are they focusing on, which areas, etc. And I would whatever I understood, I used to jot down on a sheet of paper and I used to stick it on my table. Okay, for my 1 week, my history focus should revolve around these. It cannot be like I'm reading anything at all. Like generally history, they do not ask years directly. So if I do not know this, then I'll uselessly like try to read whatever, etc. So analyzing PYQs, understanding patterns, and having those patterns clearly in your mind by sticking on your wall or sticking on your uh, table will help make sure that in that 1 week, whatever you're doing, whether you're writing mock tests, analyzing mock tests, or reading your short notes, or reading newspaper, I don't care, whatever you're doing, you will make sure that your preparation or your reading, your learning is around those analysis or that understanding you got from the PYQs paper about how to go about modern India. So this is how I utilized PYQs rather than actually solving them in totality. So to sum it up, we covered the overall approach for prelims, which is practice more, read less. And we also talked about when to start preparation. So whatever I discussed, it's a very high intense activity. Like you need a lot of time, lot of energy. And if you spread it in 12 months, you will not be able to keep it up. But if you restrict it to 2 3 months and like go at it, like be at it for 10 12 hours in those 3 months, it becomes very challenging, interesting, and like you'll be able to maintain it. And third, we talked about how to schedule a day, we talked about how you should not see tests just as a way of testing yourself. These are great sources for additional learning, which is not possible if you chase around books. So understand that and give mock tests equal importance as you give for any kind of revision notes or your notes or whatever notes. And fourth, we talked about how to schedule your mock tests, taking two test series and segregating them subject wise and giving each subject 1 week. And in the first 1.5 months, you'll finish off the subject wise or sectional tests. In the next 1.5 months, you'll focus on CSAT and full length tests. And after that, we talked about how to actually attempt a test and analyze it on the same day. We talked about 3 rounds, round one, round two, round three, how to identify those rounds clearly, because that's important for your analysis and revision. And finally, we saw how to revise each paper 3 times. By three, I mean the first is on the same day as you take test. Second day is 1 week. Second revision is 1 week later, and third revision is 1 week later from that. And we also saw how to make PYQs or analysis from PYQs the center point of all your preparation by understanding the trends. And finally, we saw what to do 1 week before the actual exam. Whatever notes that you make from this mock test in your revision 3 of each mock test, you'll get around 35 papers or so. These 35 papers are what you're going to sit and revise again and again and again, because these are some of the things that you couldn't remember or recollect or you're weak in despite reading, despite revising, couple of times. So this is how you will finish your revision, like 1 week before the actual exam. So this is it. And current affairs, I learned to follow just newspaper, whether it's for mains or it's for prelims. And I used to look at, just skim through the paper and see which is a potential question for prelims, again based on previous year's questions. I did not focus too much on any compilations, because I felt that, like, seriously, my strategy has no time for current affairs, like bulky books. So I just stuck to newspaper, 1 hour, 1.5 1 hour newspaper reading, whatever I felt important. I used to just write down in notes. And this newspaper reading, I had a habit. So throughout the year, I always used to read newspaper and pick up 1 or 2 points per day, like not more than 2 or 3 ever. Like if you're writing more than 3 or 4 points, then you have not understood what to be studied for prelims exam. So 3 or 4 very tiny points I used to write, and that only I used to revise even before the prelims exam. Nothing special for current affairs. So yeah, this is overall my strategy for prelims exam. I know it sounds very difficult to understand maybe, but if this is recorded, maybe you can watch it in slow mode.
Yeah. So, okay, I think very comprehensive. In fact, when we chatted last year, which was in the Raw and Real, it was more like how did you evolve as an aspirant over the years? But I did not know the grind which you put in,
Yeah.
especially in the prelims, which is pretty detailed. A few questions just for curiosity's sake. So, how did your score increase, or how were your prelims marks across your attempts? Like, where were you hitting?
Okay. So mains was something that I struggled to get a strategy, but I always felt very comfortable with the prelims, and I always scored at least 10 marks above the cutoff. Like in the recent, my last attempt also, I think I scored around bit more than 120. And I always
Okay.
scored that because I felt my strategy was foolproof. And I did the grind every year, same grind. And as the years progressed, I reduced the time, but I did not reduce what I was doing. I would still solve 70 papers, but in a lesser amount of time, maybe like 2 tests per day, because I was good and well versed with how to solve papers, how to analyze, etc.
Okay, perfect. And you mentioned about, multiple revisions and finally crunching, things down to short
Mm.
notes or very easy listicle. So, and I shared the flash notes file with you, right? And on that history, I'll just share one of the pages of the PDFs that we've made. So this is something which we did, right?
Yeah.
Governor generals and policies across the folks who came.
Hmm.
So for history and polity, what we've done, taken a cue from your and Pavan and
Yes,
few
yes.
more
Yeah.
guys.
Hmm.
We've tried to crunch everything so that it's ready for revision.
Hmm.
Commissions which came, what's
Right,
dispatched, what was
right.
rejected.
So
Because
this is, yeah,
yeah,
this is what I also had. Like besides my Bipin Chandra short note that I made in my first attempt, I had just like a list of these things like social religious movement, tribal revolts, women's organizations, or like governor generals, etc. And these I actually tore from the last
pages.
two pages of Spectrum, and I used. But this is more or less how it was.
Perfect. So what we've done for the Janta who's attending this session and is here till now, we'll be giving you these two flash notes, modern history and polity, which CD has done till now, either on your email or we'll put a link on chat here. Uh, cool. One more thing which came up on the chats is that how did you deal with the funda of judgment? You're attempting test almost every day, even if you've not completed the syllabus. Obviously, you would be scoring that test also, right? You would be getting some
Right.
score. How do you maintain the momentum day after day without getting bogged down by, you know, surprised mock scores?
I never shared my marks with anybody. It was only for my Excel sheet. Nobody had access to how much I was scoring. And I constantly kept telling myself that these tests are for learning. These are not for testing myself. I am not testing myself. I will test myself directly only in the final exam.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you should
Any
remind
surprises
yourself
there? Any
completely.
surprises there in your mocks? Like, did you score abysmally low one day and then, how
I
did you
used to
manage to
start
come back
like
on?
every year, I used to start low because I would forget a lot of things. Even if let's say it was my third attempt and I'm starting with my prelims preparation, I would start with modern India and I would still not get like the marks that I should be getting after two attempts. It's every time it's always new. Like I would start with 70s, 75, 80 because I would forget everything. But eventually my marks would increase till like 110, even in the mock test. Slowly they used to gradually increase.
Okay. On CSAT, we've seen over time the level of CSAT has increased. I mean, it used to be something which you can solve very easily, top of your head, especially for engineers. And now even engineers who've done their MBA and all, they say that it's slightly hitting the CAT level. Was that your experience, or I mean, should how
True.
seriously students should take CSAT now?
So it did get difficult. In fact, in my fourth attempt, when I could not clear the prelims, it was because of CSAT, not because of my first paper. I scored like 120 in my first paper and I did not clear the
Oh,
second part.
still.
So it did get difficult, but I didn't clear it because I took CSAT for granted that year. I did not practice any CSAT tests or whatsoever. But I'll say yes, it is getting difficult. So please give it time. Again, the same thing, practice. Even though it's getting difficult, there are still some questions that you can. There's some types of questions. So try to identify those types of questions and be thorough with them. Every type of question has a shortcut or a trick in YouTube. Like you
Hmm.
can, so
Hmm.
when I was attempting, I made like a list of 8 or 9 types of questions, like cube questions, a particular type of permutation combination questions, or work questions, work per day, these questions. I made a list of these questions and I made sure I had a shortcut to solve each of these questions. So these are my comfort questions, like I cannot get wrong in them, and these are my safe questions. So I identified those. And then more than that, as I realized they were asking new types of questions and more difficult questions, I also tried to look up for those questions, practiced more. The idea is do not take it for granted, give it time, solve as many papers as you feel is necessary for you to clear that exam. So this is how it was for CSAT.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had a network failure.
Okay.
Uh, okay, so CSAT is done. One interesting thing is current affairs. You didn't have much time to
Hmm.
digress around. You stuck to your plans. One more interesting thing is that and this is outside this exam purview, I figured that, in your academy and in the foundation and phase one training, there's a lot of emphasis towards data and, in fact, coding. You guys are learning Python, I believe,
Yeah,
if I'm
yeah.
not wrong.
Mm.
Is there a shift in which bureaucracy is now focusing more on data and data analysis? And, did you figure something out because of which CSAT may be gaining a lot of prominence now?
Possible. I never gave it a thought, but I think it makes a lot of sense now that you've said it. So yeah, there is a lot of emphasis on being updated with whatever technologies are coming up, and all these technologies at the core of them is logics, math, data, and
Mm,
you should be good with them because there is a lot of emphasis on data-based learning, evidence-based decision making. So
mm.
could be. So if that is the reason, then yeah, you should be very serious about CSAT.
Awesome. One more question. A
Yeah,
lot of people have requested that if you can get hands on your PDFs or notes, do drop to me on WhatsApp and I will share with the people who are attending this.
yeah, yeah,
Because you've mentioned a lot about your short notes. I'll
yeah.
try to get the flash notes link here, but in case we're
Mm.
not, I'll send it to everyone on email.
I'll see. All of them were like handwritten, so I'll
Oh,
see if any
it's
of
even
them are
better.
scanned. I mean, they should be
Oh,
scanned.
okay, they are
I
not
don't
scanned.
not
Okay.
carrying them. And after I got the rank, a lot of people had visited my home, and then they took away my notes, like most of it. And I did at that point of time. I was not thinking that somebody else or a larger audience would need my notes. Somebody had come home and they wanted my anthro so and so notes. I just gave it away because I
Oh,
wouldn't need it any further.
yeah,
But I
obviously.
think I may have some prelims content, so like I will try to share if I find it.
Perfect. Thank you. Uh, Anyone from the working profession, Janta, if you have any specific questions. So a lot of people were saying, are 6 months enough? And you kind of said that teen B, 3 year also
Yeah.
enough. And right.
Mm. Mm.
Okay. Great. I think one passing question is that people find it difficult to be consistent. And you've been at this exam for multiple
Mm.
years, and succeeding, failing, and the fourth, like you
Right.
said, you couldn't clear the prelims. So what was it that you did to get the headspace in the right?
Okay, so I think you should understand what breaks consistency. What break it's not the indiscipline that breaks consistency, or it's not the lack of willpower. I think relying on discipline and willpower are not can only get you so far. So what breaks your consistency is your if you're overwhelmed that there is so much to do, I'm going nowhere, I do not know where I am, or if you're anxious about not completing what you should complete. So it's this the fear of unknown that breaks the consistency and makes you do more comfortable things, like doing
Mm,
any let's say tests for example. It's very easy to fall back into just going through your notes rather than actually sitting and taking the test, because going through your notes passively is comfortable. It makes you uh, feel like you're doing something, okay, you're in control of something towards it, when actually the test is what will take you to where you should be. So understand that it's not the indiscipline or a lack of willpower, it's a lack of strategy and understanding of this exam. So if you take my case, for the 3 months that I would, let's say I decided to start for my prelims today, when the prelims is 3 months away, I had an Excel sheet which detailed about what I wanted to do any day. So if you ask me what I'll be doing like 17 days later on an afternoon, I would have an answer to you. I would have an answer to which paper would I be revising, which paper I would be attempting on that day. So once everything is in front of your eyes, and you all you have to do is just what is the part for that day, and you will know that if you do your part for that day sincerely, your job is done. You don't have to fear about future. So having a
mm,
proper strategy and a schedule in front of your eyes, and this schedule should also be well thought out. You should have confidence in your own schedule. So I think this helps. And second thing is by like do something other than preparation also. Like I used to play badminton or do yoga for 1 hour every day. I used to play with my pet or something. This is to relieve any kind of anxiety you may be having unknowingly, because there's a lot of anxiety
mm.
that builds up in your head and body and you'll never realize it. And that anxiety, that hidden anxiety, will make you do a lot of unhealthy things like binge watching or not studying, etc. So in order to tackle with that unknown part, you need a outlet release, and that outlet is play, sports, yoga, or anything that, not again binge watching, but productive activities like sports. So
Okay.
these two things, I think, help you stay consistent.
Okay, awesome. Last question, and I'm picking up one interesting one from the audience. Shruti Gupta has asked a question. It's a very simple question. I don't know if we can reduce your whole 5 attempts into a simple one, but what were your topmost mistakes in the 5 attempt? Are there
Uh,
any on
Reading too
top of
much. It's undoubtedly reading too much. I used to read very widely. It's not a bad thing to read widely, but you should not lose sight of your exam. This exam requires you to just read whatever is required for the exam, for the syllabus, and practice more. So, reading more, practicing less were my two biggest mistakes. The moment I corrected these mistakes, everything started to change. And practicing is actually very, very difficult. Writing answers is not easy. You'll write the shittiest answers you can imagine. You feel like crying at your own answers. But then you have to cross those 100, 200 bad answers to get it an answer that is decent enough to show it to somebody. Forget be graded well. So
were
be
there friends you were
patient.
preparing with? Were there folks you were preparing with? Yeah, ye bilkul, this was a solo journey
No, no, no.
most of the time.
I had an amazing peer group. I had seniors who were helping me.
Oh,
Like some seniors in the sense, some of my friends got selected in previous attempts, and they used to
hmm.
help me. I always studied with the peer group because it's easier to maintain consistency, uh, console each other if things are not
I think
going
these are
well.
some of the things which we don't talk about. How peer
Yeah,
group help, the right peer group, community, and
yeah,
just
yeah.
because it's difficult to sustain the momentum.
Don't
Uh,
make it a solo journey. Don't take it too seriously. Like, understand at the end of the day, I know it's very easy to say this once I clear the exam. I can sense myself, but I still tell you, like, try not to take it too seriously. I did not take it too seriously in my last attempt in which I actually cleared. I started to
oh,
appreciate
okay.
other little things in my life.
You were with
And
us as well, right? In the last attempt,
yeah, yeah.
you were a
So I
maze
was not
factor. You were
studying
checking,
24/7. I was
yeah, you
checking
were,
papers there.
yeah, and
Uh,
whatnot.
so
And a lot of people here, want your understanding on mains, but today we'll only keep it for prelims. We'll
oh
not
yeah.
go into the mains. Mains will
Mm,
is a it's a
yeah.
Pandora box in itself, right? Uh, in fact, we were just sitting for the mains thing, and we said we should move beyond the intro body conclusion ki kahani, and we should
Yeah.
rather focus on theme and demand, and theme
Hmm.
keyword, which one to prioritize more and more, because that's how we are restructuring the mains program. So what we'll do is we'll one day request Sunday evening, especially only for mains, because that's something you've devoted a lot of time. You've
Right.
first checked copies and you've gained from that,
Yeah.
and that's an interesting story in its own. Uh, Thanks, Uma. This has
Yeah.
been splendid. And how's the academy? How's Missouri? How cold is it? I am putting up with Dehradun, by the way. It's getting cold.
It's yeah, it's extremely cold. I mean, I'm not used to coming from Telangana. I'm not very
Yeah.
used to cold, so I keep catching cough and cold.
Ah,
But the academy
that's
is
great. That's
amazing.
a kind of
So you get,
acclimatization. Yeah,
yeah,
it is. It's amazing. It's really amazing.
like you
Okay,
get
for the
it's
Janta,
fine.
for the Janta
Mm.
who's here aspiring for the next year, any interesting academy in anecdote which you would like to share, and we'll end the session at that.
No, actually, no. I think please don't hype up anything. Just do your work. This is an academy like any university or any, like, I studied at IIT Hyderabad. It was a university. We had all this there also, like facilities and all. Like, do not glorify anything. This
Hmm,
is just
hmm.
an exam. This is just an academy. You do your sincere work and you'll come here. You'll enjoy the time here, and then you leave. Ultimately, it's a training academy. You have to go in the field and work.
Right,
So
right.
there's nothing like
But did you get to
different.
meet some of the folks you admired from a distance while
Oh,
you were
yes,
preparing?
definitely. Yes, definitely. I did get to meet. It was just nice to say hi. I followed. In fact, my roommate is Richa Kulkarni, who
Okay.
cleared. She cleared earlier, although she was in a different service, and she was my she was somebody I looked after, like all the time,
Oh,
like looked up to, sorry. So I would
okay.
read her essay copies. I would read her answers. I would look at mock interviews, and then she's a really good friend of mine here. She's my roommate as well. So
Perfect. That's so
yeah,
nice.
so it's nice that way. You get to meet people you adored.
Super, super. Thanks, Uma. It was so
Yeah.
nice and so warm to have you back again. And
Thank you.
have a
Thank you.
great evening. Bye.
Happy to help. Yeah. Bye.